Hello again, and thank you very much for joining us on another ESM podcast. I'm Daniel Gilby. I'm joined as always by Sunil, my co-host. Today, hello Sunil. We've got a guest speaker coming in from us from Freshworks, and we're going to be discussing a lot of things around the Freshservice product specifically. So, without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Chad Haftorson, who is a Senior Director of Product. Chad, great to have you with us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
You're very welcome indeed. We do have a few questions lined up for you, and Sunil, I think you were going to take the first one, right?
Yeah, I will do. So, Chad, again, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here. So, Accession has been a partner of Freshworks for a number of years, I think probably about 4 or 5 years. There have been a number of changes, I guess, in the Freshworks organization as you guys have developed. But we're coming into 2025, right? And I would say that at this moment in time, Freshworks, and in particular Freshservice, has really established itself in the IT service management marketplace. We work with a number of different technologies, and within our organization, we recognize Freshservice as actually having a, really quite an advanced product, right? And I think there has been a huge amount of investment in development of the product. You also have quite a broad client base. So with that in mind, I guess the first question is really, maybe you could set the scene for 2025 from a Freshworks and obviously from a Freshservice perspective. What are your focus areas? What are the main kind of market trends you're seeing? How's that influencing your strategy?
Sure. So I can hit on both of those, actually, Freshworks and Freshservice. So just to start at the Freshworks side, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this from our press releases, from our the public statements our executive team have made, but we've got 3 big focus areas for Freshworks as a company. And the first one, which is great for me, is Freshservice, and continuing to add depth to our Freshservice capabilities and really doubling down with what we can do there for employee engagement, employee experience. The second big one is continuing with our evolution of AI to help your requesters, to help your employees, your customers, as well as your agents be more productive and get help faster. And then the third big area is really continuing to drive growth in our Fresh Desk or our external customer support segments. We won't talk about that one a lot here today, but that's that third area for us. But the first 2 are very, very key to Freshservice. And really, if I look at 2025 and what we're doing from a priority standpoint, the first big focus area for us is really around continuing to evolve AI within the product. We want to make it easy for your employees to engage so they can get help 24/7, anytime, automated, just like they're used to doing with their consumer apps or their mobile devices. They don't have to talk to a person. They don't have to wait for a person. They can get responses right away. And we've done a lot of cool things to make it easy to leverage the setups you already have with your knowledge base, with your service catalog, to be able to automate a lot of that for your employees. At the same time, we're working on efficiency using AI for your agents by doing things for them to just help them automate a lot of the tasks they do on a day-to-day basis. Like, last year, the focus was all on generative AI and leveraging that for doing things like automated summarization or generation of replies, creating resolution notes on tickets, all things that speed up the process of creating that content. This year, our focus is going to be more on process-oriented things within ITSM or service management in general, and that's things like intelligent ticket routing or automated problem detection, automated root cause analysis, using a lot of the key data that's being captured to help make some decisions for you, flag some things for you, as opposed to you having to figure that stuff out manually. Now, the second big focus area for us, which ties into that last piece quite a bit, is really adding depth and maturity around IT service management, IT asset management, and IT operations management. Um, as you pointed out, we have a very diverse customer base. I don't think anyone would be surprised to hear our roots are in more of the SMB space, which has been great on the ease of use side. But as we've grown over the last dozen years, we've seen a lot of companies at higher maturity levels looking for the same kinds of things: ease of use, ease of implementation. So we've been pulled in those directions. We're like I said, adding a lot of depth in those core IT service management areas. And then the third big focus area is uh, we have a lot of our customers, probably about a third, using Freshservice for IT plus some other departments like HR, like finance, other groups. So this concept of enterprise service management has been around for a while with us. This started before we actually even started building anything specifically for those groups, because again, the ease of use and the ease of setup made it simple for organizations to just extend into other groups. But we're continuing to build out our capabilities for managing multiple departments in a single instance of Freshservice. So you can do things like segment configuration, segment data, segment administration across different groups. So you don't have to worry about HR and IT stepping on each other, for instance. But at the same time, single instance. So it's easy to share tickets. Your employees have a single place to go to get help from the entire organization. A lot of things like that. And then as HR is the biggest of these non-IT groups, we're doing some things specific for HR as well, which will help with not only things like employee onboarding and offboarding, but also other processes like leavers, movers, and joiners, relocation, paternity leaves, things like that. So those are really our key focus areas for 2025.
It sounds like, just to touch on the kind of joiners, movers, and leavers, and so on. That sounds like something I imagine a lot of customers and the market space. I mean, we certainly hear a lot about that of kind of requested. So you're meeting that need, full frontal.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. And we've had some capabilities there for a while, but it was limited's not quite the right word, but limited a little bit in what you could do there. And as we've been working with more and more organizations, we see your hiring process, or even more importantly, your termination process in one country may be completely different from what you do in another country. So you need to have that flexibility to be able to model those processes for different locations. And while the overall flow may be similar, the individual tasks that you go through for fulfillment of those are a little bit different. So that's the kind of flexibility we're planning to add in.
That's really interesting. And you've talked, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot happening, right? A lot of development taking place, a lot of investment in the product. You talked about building that depth out, which kind of leads nicely into this sort of aspect where, and again, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be aware, because this was kind of quite well publicized, as the acquisition of Device 42. Now, open question, what made the wider team at Freshworks think that would be a good acquisition to make?
Yeah, so couple things there. We've been partnering with Device 42 for several years now. So we already have a number of customers. Before the acquisition closed back in June, we had a number of customers leveraging Device 42 and Freshservice together. So we were fairly familiar with them. But even way before that, before we partnered, we realized there was a little bit of a gap for us as we went up market with some of these more mature organizations. Device 42, or where we saw some of those gaps, were in things like advanced discovery, not necessarily just discovering all of your devices on your network or in your cloud. We were okay at that, but being able to understand the relationships and the dependencies between those assets, which is really what drives the advanced IT service management capabilities, like for things like troubleshooting incidents, determining root cause, change impact analysis. So you can look at a change request and see what might be impacted downstream from that. Those were areas that we really didn't have. We had the core bare bones capability to capture that information, but no automated way to populate it. And those are the things we'd run into against some of our competitors out there, where they could do that a little bit better, and customers expected that. So at that point, it was a question of, do we try to catch up and build that stuff that some of these organizations had been building for years, or do we look for a partner who's really good at it? And in this case, we found a partner in Device42 that resonated well with our customer base, instantly provided that capability, and it was really easy for us to pull that information into Freshservice to leverage for those more advanced processes. And most importantly, they were best in class. So it wasn't like we're playing catch up to the big competitors out there. We're now using a product that some of those big competitors actually use themselves because it's better than their own tools. So that was a no-brainer for us on that one. And so far, it's taking off within our customer base. We're seeing huge traction. We're seeing the attach rates much higher than we thought they were going to be with our customer base and new customers. So it's looking really good at this point, and it's enabling, like I said, those things like root cause analysis that we're doing with AI. It gives us the underlying data set you need to be able to understand how an issue or an incident may be caused, even when the actual change requests and incidents are not necessarily related to each other, because we can go down through those service maps and figure all that stuff out for you.
Yeah, gives you a lot more insight, right? A lot more insight. And I was going to say as well, as a byproduct of that, you're getting exposure to other clients who may be super familiar with the Fresh suite of solutions as well.
Yeah,
so
there are. The other thing Device42 does, which we don't really talk about too much in the ITSM space, but they have some great offerings for things like data center consolidation or mergers and acquisitions, where you have to go in and understand everything that you have in your landscape, not related to ITSM at all, but those customers then have, there's a hint of what they could do with ITSM plus Device42 put together, and it gives us another landing point there.
A comment I would make, Chad, around the Device42 acquisition is that it allows you to travel along that maturity journey with particularly enterprise customers much further than perhaps you traditionally were able to. If you compared yourselves to ServiceNow or BMC, who have their own discovery dependency mapping tool sets, they can extend ITSM into ITOM quite effectively with that. Historically, you might have found that conversation much more difficult in the enterprise. Now it's actually a much easier conversation because you have a tool set that goes, that takes you along that journey. So, that's, I think, sort of in the market, very interesting. And then the second point is that, you talked about using AI, Freddy AI, more holistically across the product set. You are able to identify and build the right foundations much more effectively with Device42 now, aren't you, to facilitate that kind of development. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And the other big thing that fits well with us is it's relatively easy to implement. I don't want to oversell it, but we can do a proof of value for customers in a couple of weeks to show them what they can get out of the product. Obviously, there's a little bit more to implementation, but this isn't one of those, spend a year, get it up and running to get your CMDB. This is weeks. So it fits with our overall ease of implementation and total cost of ownership story.
And in fact, just to throw something in there, a small plug, we are actually doing a podcast with your Device42 colleagues on the Device42 show, so to speak, where Accession will talk about that implementation journey.
Great.
As I understand it, as long as you get the right IP ranges and security don't mind too much, you things are looking
running.
The hardest part, the part that takes the most time, is getting access.
Absolutely.
Once we have access to the pieces we need, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to wring those credentials out of their hands, haven't you?
Yep.
Don't steal our thunder, Chad. This is what we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks' time. Can I just there's another, sorry, Dan, just one final piece around Device42, which I think is really interesting, and you just touched on it very briefly there, Chad. At the moment, at least, they also offer project-based licensing, don't they? So if you are looking at, for example, migrating set of applications out of your data center and into the cloud, and you need to discover what's sat in that data center, but it's not necessarily an ongoing requirement. Device 42 can do that for you, whereas some of the other tools are not offered on a project basis. So just to flag that with listeners, that there is some really great opportunity there.
Yep. No, very true. Very true.
All I was going to just chuck into the mix was, we talked about, you've talked a bit about, Chad, about how the depth of the product Freshservice is increasing. There's more functionality being added all the time. I'm sure there's much more on the product roadmap, which you may or may not be able to share. Device 42 coming into the mix as well. You've mentioned that ease of implementation. That seems to be and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that ease of implementation seems to be remaining kind of at the core of the offering here, regardless of kind of the additional features, functionality, and maturity of the product set as that evolves. Is that something that's kind of a core aspect of what the product aims to achieve there? Because working with other vendors, there's varying levels of complexity when it comes to implementation. But I'd be interested to hear kind of your view on that ease of implementation sort of ethos, if you like.
We're definitely planning. I mean, it's fairly easy today, but we're planning to improve that. I mean, we do have a roadmap to improve that. Today, there's a little bit of a two-product experience. So Device 42 does the discovery and then pushes the data over into Freshservice, into the CMDB and Freshservice. Long term, that Freshservice CMDB will be the system of record. So that's where all the data will be captured. Device 42 will play more of a discovery role, but it will be over time converted to a SaaS application that runs within the Freshservice application stack. So there isn't a two-product experience so much anymore. You just click the box on whether you want to use Device 42 for discovery or not, and that's really all that's going to be there as far as the setup goes. And then, of course, we've already done some pretty significant things with the integration since the acquisition to support a lot more different types of assets, a lot more different types of dependencies. So the data set was already pretty rich with our integration. We've added a much richer one, and over time we'll continue to add to that and make it more seamless between the two products, to the point where there is really only one product.
Okay.
And Sunil, to your point about being able to use Device 42 in that project base for things like data consolidations or shifts to the cloud, we'll have a SaaS offering for that, as opposed to an on-prem offering that you have to go install in your data center yourself.
Yeah, which makes
it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? To be doing a shift to the cloud, and then you have to install something into your data center to help you with that. So
provision some tin for it to happen. Exactly. Can we just focus a little bit on the ESM piece?
Sure.
Because I think one of the strengths of Freshservice historically has been its some of its flexibility, right? But it sounds like you're doubling down on that, which is great, because we've been talking about ESM for decades, right? But actually, it feels more and more that this is really now at the top table, and that at CIO, CTO level, and CEO level, that the benefits of having a consolidated platform, having data in one place, having efficiencies that can follow a workflow through multiple lines of business, right? Actually, now we're talking like serious focus on this kind of stuff. So, I guess maybe tell us a bit more about why you see Freshservice as a great, ESM tool set, right? And, by extension of that, then, why should organizations be putting Freshservice on the shortlist, right, when they're going to market to look for this sort of stuff?
Sure. So I think I'll turn that around a little bit, and I'll say our customers are showing us that Freshservice is great for ESM, for enterprise service management. And really, at the end of the day, if you take the IT out of IT service management, you've got service management left, and all those other groups, they have questions coming in from their employee base. They need to answer those questions. So you need to capture questions. You need to have some kind of workflow for answering those questions, and then some agent ability to answer those questions as well. Maybe a service catalog if you want to standardize the types of offerings that you have to send back to customers. I mean, HR's big with that, with doing things like employment verification letters or requesting paternity leave, things like that, which follow a fairly standard process. So you can automate a lot of those things. So I think our roots in SMB really helped there because the ease of use and the ease of configuration made it pretty easy for those non-IT teams to expand, or for IT to expand for the non-IT teams. A lot of cases, I'd say at least half, we find that while we're supporting HR use cases, we're supporting finance use cases, it's IT that's actually managing that for them. But there were a lot of requests to be able to do more with those individual groups. And, we've always been pretty good at segmenting the data, so you don't have to worry about IT teams seeing HR tickets and vice versa. But what was coming out from some of these teams was, I'd love to offload the administration and configuration burden onto those teams themselves. They have some, business analyst types that can do some of this stuff. It doesn't require hardcore programming or anything. But the last thing I want to do is let them disrupt some key workflow that I have in IT. So how can we do that kind of thing? And that's where we came up with the concept of workspaces. So we wanted to be able to provide that capability for allowing groups to be independent in how they operate, in how they fulfill their requests, in how they develop a service catalog, their workflows, administration, all those kinds of things. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure your employees had a single place to go. We started to see some customers before workspaces. We'd start to see some customers, start up a new instance for HR. And while that works, it's kind of clunky. It means now all of a sudden, as an employee, I have to know where the HR portal is versus the IT portal. So we built this concept of workspaces that allows you to segment administration, all your configurations. So HR and IT can have different workflows. They can have different service catalogs. They can have different sets of fields on the form, all that kind of stuff. Yet the employees all go to the same place. They don't know that there's different ways of fulfilling these things on the back end. They just request what they need, and then it gets routed to the right place. For complex workflows like employee onboarding that span multiple teams, it's easy to share the different fulfillment activities across those teams because it's all in one instance. So that was the big thing that we did with workspaces, and we're continuing to evolve that to make it even easier for customers. We've seen huge uptake in this within our customer base. And really, there's a big opportunity still in customers who are still using or created their enterprise service management prior to workspaces and just haven't converted yet because they haven't wanted to spend the time, or it's working okay for them. So there's still a big opportunity there for a lot of customers to continue moving. And as I mentioned earlier, we see HR as the most prominent group outside of IT. So we're starting to build some things that are more HR specific, like document generation, like e-signature processing for documents, like more flexibility around your employee onboarding and offboarding and relocation and things like that. We'll start doing the same for other departments over time based on what we see in the market and what those specific needs are.
Well, one of the things that, it's very interesting that, Chad, one of the things that we see from our customers is, what out of the box processes are made available by vendors, right? That they can start from, right? It's a starting point, not an end point. But like 99 times out of 100, it's have you got JML out of the box, right? But then there are, as you've just said, right, lots of other different business processes, and actually, the more content in that regard that you can deliver a customer organization, I guess the better chance you have winning their business, but B, the more adoption, right, that you will.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I didn't even include that part when I was talking about workspaces, but and our Freshservice for business teams, which is what we call our enterprise service management. But
Okay.
each one of those different departments, we have templates set up for finance, for HR, for facilities, for I think there's 3 or 4 more, and those templates include service catalog items that are based on what we've implemented for customers. So, are you going to turn them on and use them right out of the box? Maybe not, but as you're an IT department trying to sell this to other parts of your organization, or you're a new department coming up to speed, it gives you those examples of here's what other people have done, here's what I can start with, and it really helps. It's much easier than just going to a blank whiteboard and trying to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. So it wouldn't be a podcast in the year 2025 if we didn't talk a little bit more in depth about AI. So the Freddy AI solution within Fresh, what's the kind of approach you guys are taking to, one, embed that more granularly? And I know you've talked a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
But also to sort of drive the broader adoption versus, let's say, using an alternative. And there are a plethora of tools out there.
Sure.
So what's the key thing that's going to help set Freddy apart?
So there's different parts of Freddy. Obviously, there's our Freddy AI agent, which is really a chatbot, and it's designed to help employees ask a question at any point in time, get a response back. And the way that works, it runs within Microsoft Teams or Slack. On our roadmap, we're planning to enable a different additional collaboration tools, or even allow you to run it on a self-service portal or something like that if you wanted to. But it basically allows the employee to go where they're already working in their collaboration tool, ask a question, and then get a response back in terms of service catalog items or solution articles. So we're leveraging the content you already have built out for your service desk to serve those and answer those questions. We have natural language processing built in. We use generative AI to help do things like translations if questions are being asked in a different language and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all about automating those questions and responses. And then, as you know, with service catalog items and service requests, you can have workflow tied to that. So if I'm saying something like, hey, I'd love to have a license for accession, we can automate that for you and provision that license for you automatically via workflow. So that's really where we're focused on the Freddy AI agent side. And what we've done is built some tools to help your implementation process with that. And by tools, I'm talking mainly documentation. It's, again, leveraging things that we've learned with other customers. Here's kind of how you start. So look for some low-hanging fruit. What are some common requests that you get that you're answering basically the same way all the time? Those are easy ones to get going. And that way your employees get used to getting answers quickly and get those back, because, unfortunately, if you push something like a virtual agent out there and it's not very responsive, or it doesn't give great answers the first or second time, people aren't going to go back to it. They're going to go back to sending emails or picking up the phone or whatever else. So we do have some things there that will help guide how you should implement, or how you should think about implementing, how you promote it to your user base. We have some other tools we're building in, like allowing the agent to listen in on particular channels. So here at Freshworks, our IT group uses a Slack channel for as one method of communication with the help desk. So you just go into, I think it's NAIT help. You type in your question, and an agent will jump in. Well, we've added the Freddy AI agent to that as well, so it can listen to that channel, and then as questions come in, it can respond and try to engage with the users automatically that way. So it proactively tries to help them, and that garners a little bit more trust in it, as well as you don't necessarily even have to be going to it anymore to understand that. Now, the second part of your question, why this and not another tool out there that you can bolt onto any service desk. The main thing is we do all the training for you. So we've already built the models in that understand IT terminology, that understand HR terminology. So again, we have our service requests set up, we have our solution articles set up, so we know how to use all that the day you turn it on. You don't have to do any special training for that. If you're going with an external solution, they'll work, and some of them work really well, but you spend a lot of time and a lot of effort training their AI models so they understand your data, so they understand the types of questions you have in your ITSM system before it can start answering anything. So there's a lot of effort there, and obviously an additional cost as well. Freddy AI Agent is part of the enterprise plan, while those other tools obviously are going to run you a couple $100,000 by the time you're implemented, or more, depending on how many people you have.
No, for sure. So you're still keeping to that ease aspect, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's make it as easy as
Yep.
easy as possible. Okay, I mean, there are a lot of tools out there, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more by the time this gets published. But that's interesting to hear. So from a customer's point of view, they've got that ease of use, but in terms of them sort of saying, how can I start taking advantage of this? Were you suggesting kind of plug it into as many customer, both internal and external facing channels as possible, or are there other kind of what have you seen out there from your customers who've had great success?
For AI Agent, it's identify the areas where you think it'll be successful. First, basically simpler ones, go after that low hanging fruit, and between plugging it into or letting it listen in on some of the public channels within Slack or Microsoft Teams, or making sure it's your service catalog is very robust around, say, password resets or something like that happen on a regular basis, and you've got a fairly defined process for it. That gets that trust going with your employees. They see instant gratification as as their questions are being answered quickly, and then it's going to grow organically from there. On the Copilot side, where it's more about agents, it's a little easier because these are tools that just help your agents with their day-to-day jobs. It'll search the knowledge base for me and suggest a reply to a customer based on the text in the ticket, or it will automatically translate a ticket that's come in a different language so I can read it and I can reply to it, or I can automatically generate a resolution for you, or quickly create a summary across all the emails and notes and things associated with the ticket. So those are easy things to just turn on, and your agents can use them or not. It doesn't force them to do anything. So that's an easier one to get started with even than Freddy AI Agent. So we do see a lot of our customers starting on the Copilot side because there's really no learning curve. There's no additional work that anyone has to do. It just works when you turn it on.
So it's there as an assist if they want to use it and
Exactly.
engage with it, and then over time they get they build that confidence with it, and that's interesting to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I would add something to this though, which is that if you're head of service management, CIO, whatever it may be, right? Actually, you want to see some efficiencies, don't you? And efficiencies, I think, are a much easier thing with AI as it exists today than in trying to improve customer experience. As you've just said, that can perhaps be more difficult to achieve, but actually efficiencies are tangible. Maybe we're learning better how to measure the efficiency or the productivity gains, but actually you can get that embedded today in the day-to-day work of people working on a service desk, for example. So actually, I would say, Dan, people should go beyond, give them the choice. Actually, I think that people should be proactively using these tools now, and if they're not, then there's a trick that's being missed there.
Yeah. The business. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I don't disagree in the slightest. Right? You have the tools available, then arguably you should be making use of them. I was just kind of thinking on Chad's comment, and forgive me if I'm misrepresenting you here, Chad, that you sort of said it's available for them if and when they want to use it. So it's there as an assist in terms of it's not kind of they have to use it because they need to, but it's well, again, I'm going to say it again, right? I'm going to use that word assist. But yeah, they should be arguably taking advantage of that for the gains and other positives that it'll bring. But it's all about that adoption piece as well. Sorry, Chad, go for it.
Yeah, no, you're right. The business case for turning on it in the first place is a little different from the adoption side, where you don't necessarily want to force your agents to do something different when they're not totally bought into it. But from a business case perspective, the efficiency gains are huge. So it's pretty easy to sell. Just thinking of one of the key things that you get out of Freddy Copilot is for your agents. I talked about resolution notes a little bit before. Most companies, at least with any maturity whatsoever, require their agents to type something in for a resolution. Unfortunately, they type, "I resolved this," or "this is done," or whatever. And how useful is that data, right?
Yeah.
So the resolution notes generator is a quick click a button, and we'll go through and we'll create that resolution note for you. That's a standard format. It captures the relevant information all there. And what you're doing when you're using that is you're actually building a knowledge base on the fly, because then the next time an agent comes in and says, "Hey, give me a suggestion to reply to this ticket," it's going to read those resolution notes that have been captured, and it will create that reply suggestion for you. So you're building that knowledge base on the fly without having to have somebody manually go create a bunch of solution articles. It can really jumpstart things there for you. And then that not only makes your agents more effective or efficient, it also means maybe your tier 1 agents can start answering more questions, because they can find those resolutions and not have to necessarily have the expertise to do it themselves, but rely on what other people have put into the system. So it's all about standardizing and automating how that data is being captured, how that resolution information is being captured, so you can reuse it in the future to answer tickets more quickly. So it's
and let's not
those
forget,
are the key things.
What it also does, though, is sets the platform right for automated resolution of these sorts of sort of similar incidents in the future, right? So actually, if we're not building that foundation now, right, then we'll be slower to start to really drive automation or AI generated automation of resolutions, right?
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's nothing more disappointing as being on that first line, and you kind of look for that historic ticket where the user had the similar problem, and you scroll all the way down to the resolution notes and it just says fixed, right? So you want to have something a bit more tangible than that. Chad, conscious of time, brilliant conversation with you. Just got a final question for you, and feel free to answer this as you see fit. But just on the sort of subject Sunil brought up, given that that's kind of the way we're headed, how long do you think it will be before we're kind of seeing in these organizations where AI agents, that agentic AI, is going to be able to sort of just handle a lot of these kind of first line requests? What do you think, in this year, a couple of years, further out, depending?
I think you'll start to see some of that from us this year, a little bit later this year. We're looking at it from a couple of different ways. The automated resolutions, resolve the ticket, send it back to somebody. That's one piece of it. We're also looking at some capabilities where we can assist agents in the next steps they're supposed to be providing. So not just automate, not just automatically generate a reply and then send that back, but in a more complex scenario, like where a system's down, we can automate a run book and walk the agent through how they fix something, so you don't necessarily have to worry about finding that one guy that knows that one system to address it. So those things will be coming later this year.
Good to
Fantastic.
hear.
Watch this space, folks.
Yep.
Chad, thank you again for joining us today. Great conversation. To the listeners out there, if you'd like to find out more about Freshworks or Freshservice specifically, do reach out, get in touch with Chad, get in touch with myself and Sunil here at Accession. We'd be happy to discuss that with you. Equally, if you've got topics you'd like to hear us talk about, or indeed you'd like to come on the show, please get in touch, reach out. Thanks very much. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Chad.
Thanks for having me.